Saturday. I do have a juicy topic for you all today. For those that are watching live Facebook, I usually have my title there and it disappeared, but don't worry, I have it. So the title of the day is God, I'm Suffering, Where Are You? Once again, it's God, I'm suffering, where are you? So I know that sometimes a lot of us may be going through a lot of different situations that cause us to think that God is angry with us, God has forgotten about us, and that he just wants to punish us. And I know firsthand how that can feel. You're like, God, I'm going through so many things right now. Like, where are you? Why am I suffering? Why am I going through these things? Well, I want to talk to you about the story of Job. Some of you may be familiar with the story about the story of Job, how his faith was tested. He was stripped of everything. And in the end, we see how God had changed his story. Now, this story is a great example of the question that a lot of people ask God. Well, God, why do we suffer? So I want to go ahead and go into it. This story, I do encourage you to read it in its entirety. I'm going to give you the meat of it just so you can get the basics of what this story means. So I'm going to read Job chapter 1, verse 6 through 12. And it says, Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan and also came among them. And the Lord said to Satan, From where do you come? So Satan answered the Lord and said, From going to and from on the earth, and from walking back and forth on it. Then the Lord said to Satan, Have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man who fears God and shuns evil? So Satan answered the Lord and said, Does Job fear God for nothing? Have you not made a hedge around him, around his household, and around all that he has on every side? You have blessed the work of his hand and his possessions, and increased in the land. But now stretch out your hand and touch all that he has, and he will surely curse you to your face. And the Lord said to Satan, Behold, all that he has is in your power. Only do not lay a hand on his person. So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. So this is a prime example of Satan basically knew that Job was a man of God. He knew that he believed in the Lord, and he knew that it showed in his life. And basically he got permission from the Lord, like, well, if he's one of yours and he's blessed and basically he's highly favored, let me go ahead and test him. Let me go ahead and test his faith. And that's exactly what he did. So in other words, Satan saw that Job feared the Lord, and it showed in his life, and Satan wanted to torment him. And that's what we experience in life. Sometimes we get distracted. We see certain things happen in our life, and we like, well, God, why are you doing this to us? And it's not God. Sometimes things happen. Satan wants to put distractions in our way for us to start blaming God and to start losing our hope and faith in God. And we have to understand that God, I always say this on the show, a lot of times in my show, I said that God wants us to have a prosperous life. Our lives are not meant to just be pure evil and for him to punish us. Some things happen for us to be tested. And in this prime example, Job was being tested. But if you read further along in the story, he did not know that he was being tested by Satan. He thought that he was just being punished by God for whatever reason, something that may have happened in his life that he wasn't aware of, some sin that he did, but that was not the case. So the things that he lost. So just like in today's society. So Job, back in these days, donkeys and cattle, all of those type of things meant a lot to people. That you were rich when you had a lot of those type of things. And Job lost his wife. He lost his children. He lost his friends. He just lost a lot of things. He lost his property, and Satan also attacked his health as well. And if you're familiar with the story, you know about the skin disease he developed because Satan was really testing him, y'all. Now, in the story, there was times that he was going through it so much that he was even pleading with God, like, God, I can't take this no more. Let me die. I'll be better off in my grave. Like, let me die. I'd rather die than to go through what I'm going through right now. And I know a lot of you all can relate to this. Sometimes you may be going through the storm and you feel like, well, you know what, God, this burden is so hard for me to carry right now. I'd rather be dead right now. Nobody will care if I'm gone right now. Write me off. I don't care. I don't want to deal with it. I'd rather be dead right now. But thank God that Job didn't die and he kept persevering. He kept pressing on. Later in the chapter, Job's friends was even telling him, like, the reason that you're going through this is because you may have committed some type of sin in your life. There has to be some type of wrongdoing that you done in your life for God to be having you go through this type of stuff. And if you have people that's around you saying things like, well, you know, God is not pleased with what you're doing and things like that, we can't correlate things going on in our lives saying that God is punishing us for something. That's not how God operates. This was simply a test from Satan himself. And because God knew that Job was a man of faith and he knew that he believed in the Lord, he allowed Satan to go ahead and test him because he knew at the end that he was going to change Job's story and that he was going to have the victory and the glory in his life. I want to read to you in Job chapter 19, verse 7 through 16. Y'all have to read this story. It's so encouraging. So then it says, chapter 19, verse 7 through 16, it says, then Job answered and said, how long will you torment my soul and break me in pieces with words? These 10 times you have reproached me. You are not ashamed that you have wronged me. And if indeed I have erred, my error remains with me. If indeed you exalt yourselves against me and plead my disgrace against me, and know then that God has wronged me and has surrounded me with his net. If I cry out concerning wrong, I am not heard. If I cry aloud, there is no justice. He has fenced up my way so that I cannot pass. And he has set darkness in my paths. He has stripped me of my glory and has taken the crown from my head. He breaks me down on every side, and I am gone. My hope he has uprooted like a tree. He has also kindled his wrath against me, and he counts me as one of his enemies. His troops come together and build up their road against me, and they encamp all around my tent. He has removed my brothers far from me, and my acquaintances are completely estranged from me. My relatives have failed, and my close friends have forgotten me. Those who dwell in my house and my maidservants count me as a stranger. I am an alien in their sight. I call my servant, but he gives no answer. So what this is basically saying, and again, I talk about the notes here in my Bible, it says the despondency of Job was a swollen river into which many streams has poured. He experienced the loss of family, property, and health, wife, friends, and they had misunderstood him. The suffering saint felt tormented, crushed with the irrelevant words of critics who should have been comforting him at this time. As I stated, his friends, they were trying to correct him, but they were doing it in the wrong way, stating that this is happening in your life because you committed some type of sin, and that's not how God operates. Crying out for help, Job received none and came to the conclusion that there is no justice anywhere. The interesting thing about Job is that while he may have despaired of hearing from God, he never doubted that God was there and knew what was going on. So I'm saying this to encourage you all. Even though Job was going through so much in his life, and he even pleaded with God at one point to be dead and be gone from this earth, he never stopped believing in God. He never doubted that God was there with him. And then in the end of this story, we see how Job was even blessed with more than he had in the beginning. And I love this story so much because sometimes when we're going through it, we don't necessarily understand the things that's happening. Just like Job didn't understand what was happening in his life. He felt like God just suddenly got angry with him. And that's why he lost his wife. That's why he lost his children. That's why he lost his property, his wealth, all of these things. And sometimes we can get in that mindset that God is angry with me. I did something wrong. When really it's the enemy that's testing us. He wants us to be the one that's angry with God. And that's not the whole thing. Like, God does not want to bring anguish to our lives just because. And everything that God does, there is a purpose and there's good that comes out of it. So with the end of the story, if we go to Job 42:10 through 13, we see how Job's story had changed. All right. In chapter 42, verse 10 through 13, we see how Job's story changed. So it says, and the Lord restored Job's losses when he prayed for his friends. Indeed, the Lord gave Job twice as much as he had before. Then all his brothers and his sisters and all those who had been his acquaintances before came to him and ate food with him in his house. And they consoled him and comforted him for all the adversity that the Lord had brought upon him. Each one gave him a piece of silver, each a ring of gold. Now the Lord blessed the later days of Job more than his beginning, for he had 14,000 sheep, 6,000 camels, 1,000 yoke of oxen, and 1,000 female donkeys. He also had 7 sons and 3 daughters. So I say this to say, whatever your loss was, whatever you felt that was taken away from you, God will restore that and give you more, just like he did with Job. Job was at a place of darkness. Job was in a place of where he was losing hope, but he always kept his faith in God. And God, because of that, God favored him and he blessed him with so much more. So I want to say this quote to you, and I want you to think about this. I know that we all face different things, and we're all hoping and praying to God for something. But my quote for today is, hang on, help is on the way. Hang on, help is on the way. God bless you all. I thank you so much for tuning into the 1 in a Million show every Saturday. I love you all, and I will see you again next Saturday, 1 in a Million.